hello.
How are you?
Another week, another space.
Absolutely.
Still talking about privacy.
Yeah.
So it happens. Yeah. So today we're going to be a little bit more philosophical than usual because, like next week we're going to do it more practical, talk more about updates on Beam and the news about the hackathon, the news about the bridges and the upcoming hard fork with the EVM, which is looking mighty good, I might add. It's very interesting what's going, it's amazing to see it getting closer and closer to reality.
Yeah.
And Ethereum contracts on Beam with privacy.
This is very cool.
Yeah. It is. It's going to be amazing. So today, I've been following a lot of different kind of interesting topics, and always when I read something, I think about discussing it in the space. But actually earlier today, one of the community members, DB, I always kind of have difficulties pronouncing all of the names. But we all know who he is. He pointed me to this podcast that Chris Black did, this kind of new thing that he is doing. Chris Black is somebody who is talking a lot about crypto and mostly about the decentralization and the importance of kind of understanding what is decentralized and what isn't. And it's very hard to argue with that because basically he says okay, so if you have 4 people multi-sig, but all of these 4 people, they're neighbors, living in the same building somewhere in whatever, it's not exactly decentralized, and obviously he's right. And he's a very vocal, critic of this kind of pseudo DeFi and pseudo, decentralized projects. And he claims that each project should declare on the front page what exactly is decentralized and what isn't. So he started this podcast that is called Conversations with Chris Black.
Okay.
And I didn't listen to the entire part because I was kind of mostly focused on this segment that mentioned privacy. But I do recommend, obviously, that you follow him on Twitter. And I think he's also attending ECC, which is kind of finishing or just finished right now in Paris. And it actually was very, very interesting because so what he said, he was talking with another person, Andrew Bailey. Once again, I'm clueless, so I don't know who all of these people are, but there is some book that he wrote, and they mentioned the Cypherpunk Manifesto. You probably know what that is, but I don't know if you read it.
It's very short, right? A one-pager? Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a one-pager, and I also read it sometime a long time ago, but obviously, but when I heard it again about it, I opened it again, and what was amazing for me is that I will let you kind of be amazed for yourself. So I will just quote a couple of lines, and it's really short. It's one page, but I will just quote a couple of lines. So the opening line says, "Privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age." Okay, so it's all about privacy, this entire Cypherpunk Manifesto. And what's interesting is that in this manifesto, there is a distinct kind of, he distinguishes, Eric Hughes, the author of this manifesto, distinguishes between secrecy and privacy. So secrecy is something that you don't want anyone to know. It's a secret, right? It's your secret. Okay. No one should know it. But privacy, on the other hand, is something that you maybe do want some people to know selectively, but you want to, first of all, control who knows that. So it should be up to you, and there should be consent. So this kind of idea of you should allow this information to be known about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's another quote. "Therefore, privacy in an open society requires anonymous transaction systems.
Yeah.
Until now, cash has been the primary such system. An anonymous transaction system is not a secret transaction system. An anonymous system empowers individuals to reveal their identity when desired and only when desired. This is the essence of privacy."
Absolutely.
So it sounds like he's talking about privacy coins, right? He's talking about Beam or Monero, right?
Yeah.
But the amazing point about this is that this manifesto was written in 1993.
Yeah, this is wild, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And like wild that he had the foresight to say like the latter quote that you mentioned about like it not being totally private, but you having the ability to divulge the information that you wanted to whom you wanted.
Absolutely. Let me quote another line. Privacy in an open society also requires cryptography. 1993, right?
Yeah.
If I say something, I want it heard only by those for whom I intend it.
Yeah, exactly.
If the content of my speech is available to the world, I have no privacy. And then he says, I think one of the most amazing lines here is, for privacy to be widespread, it must be the part of social contract.
Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. So basically, what he says is, listen, privacy cannot exist in kind of, single, limited circle scenario. It's not about that. It's about kind of, a wider agreement that we have in society about things that should include.
Yeah.
And he says, privacy only extends so far as the cooperation of one's fellows in society. And this is kind of his idea for cypherpunks to build and promote services, software, and tools that allow you to have this privacy in your daily life.
Okay. Yeah.
So couple of episodes ago, like a couple of days ago, we talked about it, like that. There is this strange situation where people are kind of feel a little bit ashamed to acknowledge that they need privacy, and privacy is often considered somehow correlated with criminal activity or something bad happening. And this is part of this kind of problem that we're having right now, that, people want privacy, but at the same time, first of all, they do very little to actually get it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And also there is this very interesting social kind of trend of kind of vilifying privacy. Like, if you want privacy, like, what, do you have something to hide? Maybe you're doing something bad, right? So they're trying to color this word with some negative connotations so that people try to avoid privacy, or at least not claim it or demand it where they need it. So this is very interesting, and it turns out that this phenomenon has a name. It's called the privacy paradox. And like, if you go to, I don't know, Wikipedia, even I can read the article on privacy, it mentions the privacy paradox. So what's the privacy paradox? The privacy paradox is this exact, very strange, gap between what people say that they want and what they actually do. Like, people say they want privacy and they don't want to share information in many cases, but at the same time, they kind of, just go online and post everything about themselves on, social media, and they, basically do nothing to actually achieve this.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I just brought it up. That's why I was a bit slow to reply. Yeah, this I definitely see a lot. I mean, even personally, I also am obviously kind of a victim, or whatever you call it, of the privacy paradox.
All of us, obviously, right? It's not something that only some people have. Like, it's an interesting concept, and there are actually a lot of studies about this. And I will dive deeper because I'm really interested, and also I'm this kind of amateur, sociologist wannabe. So I do have an interest in those topics, like why people behave like they behave, what they do. But there are at least two interesting kind of common explanations that keep popping up about why this is happening. And they have to do with two things. First of all, awareness of the problem existing.
Yep.
And the second is having the technical, or like kind of ability and knowledge to do something about it. So, for example, if you download an application on your phone, very often you see that it requests access to way too much information than what is actually needed. So the funniest example is, like, you download a kind of, weather application that will tell you the weather more accurately, and then it requires access to your photos, your contacts, and you're like, wait a second, you don't need to know my contacts to tell me the weather, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are two things happening there. So obviously, somebody behind this application is doing something with that data. Otherwise, they will not, get it. But they try to entice you into just clicking yes, next, right?
Yeah, they almost like inundate you with stuff to read so that you just go agree.
Yeah, yes, there is a link somewhere explaining something. You never open it, and if you open it, you never read it, and if you read it, you never understand it because it's usually a dense, small letter text with a lot of.
Yeah. Why is it always like size 1 font?
Yeah, is it an accident? I don't think so. So, but if you click no, I don't agree to that, then we don't get the app. So it's a kind of hostage situation. Like, you want the app, you have to agree to all of this shit that you don't understand, right? Yeah. It actually nudges you, it influences you to just give away something that you don't even know what you're giving away. And for me, by the way, and I will tell some personal stories here during this space, but for me, I think one of the most bizarre situations was that I installed many years ago, like 10 years ago, I installed a LinkedIn application on the phone, and I usually don't do that, and I rarely even use, but back in the day, I used LinkedIn more. And I installed the LinkedIn application because I needed to check something or reply to someone, I don't remember. And then after like a day, I noticed that it gave me as a LinkedIn recommendation, someone, some girl who was living in the apartment that I rented before me. So I had her contact in the phone because we needed to exchange, all kinds of things when I moved into the apartment and she moved out.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I had absolutely no relation, like professional or otherwise, to that girl. She was in a completely different area, but suddenly I got her in the recommendations, and I quickly figured out how that happened, because the second I installed the LinkedIn app on my phone, it downloaded all my contacts.
Okay, yeah.
And just matched it against the internal database and said, oh, you probably know this person. Like, yes, I know her, but I mean...
How do you know I know her?
Exactly. So I have immediately uninstalled this app, but obviously it was too late because all of my contacts were already there in LinkedIn. So this is like a great example of, one misstep and that's it, right? There is no going back from that. Like, this information is gone somewhere, right? It's not only yours anymore.
Yeah.
And I was obviously not aware that is going to happen, and I'm not, a completely clueless person. I mean, I do have experience with technologies and implications, but it completely caught me by surprise. And when something catches you by surprise, you usually remember that, right? Like I remember this story 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people are, using technology today, and the technology is moving forward crazy fast, and everything is changing, and people don't have time to learn and adjust. And even if they do, handling these things requires so much technical knowledge and expertise, and, resisting all of these enticements of, just clicking next, and installing something, and then you don't know exactly what it's doing and what it's collecting. So all of these things combined, they put you in a situation where you feel helpless, right? And say, oh, come on, like, if I'm going to start thinking about each and every application that I need to install, what it is collected and how to fight that, and what do I need to enable or disable, I'm going to go crazy. One, I don't have time for that. Two, and I don't have the technical expertise to even understand, what I'm doing.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's the situation that most people experience every day. A few years ago, I was doing this strange one-time seminar to employees of some company about internet security. It was just kind of a favor that I was doing for free because I really like, getting this understanding how the real world, not people who are deeply crypto security and computers, feel about all that. And the audience was mostly kind of middle-aged women and some men who worked in the travel industry. They were basically agents that sold the airline tickets. It was a company that sold airline tickets. And I was talking to them about a few things, like, something like how to protect your home Wi-Fi, that you need a password for your computer, things like that. And one of the exercises was like opening your browser and seeing how many extensions you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really funny because you would see all kinds of crazy extensions like that no one, not them, not anyone else knows what they're doing, but they're there.
Yeah.
And I told them, listen, it's very simple. Do you know what it is? No.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you don't know what it's there for or what it's doing, just get rid of it.
Now, the thing is that they're scared to remove something that they don't know.
Yeah, true.
Because they don't know if removing that will break something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And then they're scared because there is absolutely no kind of, okay, so let's say the browser is not working anymore for any reason. Now what do you do? Like, I mean, we know what to do, but they don't.
Yeah.
And this is kind of all that is a big one, like kind of screwed up situation. And that's why I think that education about these subjects is crazy important. And I think one of the most immediate, not solutions, but at least observations or like kind of things that need to be attended to is the education about what your data is doing there, like what's the privacy needs for you. And it should start in school. In my opinion, I mean, my daughter is 16 and, she's obviously using all of these devices usually at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say, do you have any kind of, lessons about that? Does anyone tell you anything about it? And she said, no, like at least they have like sex education, which is nice. But I mean, this is kind of also important. And no, there is no such thing.
No, yeah. We could have a full blown space on like the lack of education on this kind of stuff, right? Yeah, it's worrying. I mean, personally, I get worried about this stuff. Like, people should be learning these useful things that are affecting their everyday life and in school from a young age, but there's pretty much nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's even people who are professionally working in the industry and using these devices for work, and companies are usually kind of worried about protecting their data. Even those people, I think, don't get enough education about like how these affect. So yes, like if you lose your laptop, there is a software the company installed that will delete it. But other than that, like if you don't lose your laptop and you just click on all kinds of things and install things, nobody, like very few companies, unless they're really, really kind of take their privacy very seriously, they care about that. Well, not to mention obviously personal device.
And this happens even in crypto. Like we've seen it in the last week a few times. People on Twitter.
And we lost you again. Do the trick. Wait a second, everyone. Gus is doing the trick
Of another like application or something like this, and like SIM swapping. People have been saying like in crypto, like never use your mobile for 2FA because SIM swapping is incredibly easy. And then people from like big protocols are still using it for 2FA. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, by the way? No, you can't. Let me type in. You can't hear me, Gus. Yeah. So while Gus is rejoining and doing the trick again, so I would like just to kind of provide this kind of thought that I had about why this situation or like feeling of being overwhelmed with this kind of privacy and all of these technologies and settings and things that you need to handle, why this basically leads to a situation that only gets worse. So yeah, you're
I'm,
right?
I'm back. Yeah, I've been back for a few seconds.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's fine. Yeah, but I just started talking about this idea that I have had of why this concept of being very difficult for people to handle all of this technology, why this leads to the situation of kind of learned helplessness and why this only gets worse. And there is this interesting theory, maybe you heard about, which is called the broken window theory.
I've never heard about this, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it's a theory in criminology that says something like that. So let's say if you have a house on the street with a broken window, which doesn't get fixed for a long time, it increases the chances of other windows getting broken. This is kind of the example. And the reason for that is that when people see a situation which is kind of like something that's not working correctly, they tend to behave in the same way, and it'll make it worse. I think the best example is garbage. So if you see a pile of garbage somewhere, your chances of throwing something into that pile of garbage and making it larger,
they're increased. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
So this is exactly what's happening here, because people say, "Oh, I already, donated so much information about myself to so many services." They're starting to, to worry about, what the next application knows about me. Like, oh, come on. Like, I will not.
Almost like giving up.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And other people who see other people like doing that, and they say, okay, so they don't care, I will not care, nobody will care, and that's what makes it kind of worse and worse. And that's how we we basically just don't care anymore. That's why you see a lot of people behaving as if they really don't care about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the companies definitely know about this as well, and would take advantage of this concept.
Exactly. Not only that, and this is actually a great segue to the second part, the entire business model of many modern companies depends on your giving up your personal data.
Yeah, like the digital oil kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, starting from the advertising, targeted advertising. Did you hear the story about Google kind of Google Tracker being embedded in a software that processes tax reports?
Oh, wow. No.
So there was a story I think a week ago or something, about people found that there is a Google Tracker inside the software that does tax reports, and basically their tax information is being collected and processed for the purpose of targeted advertising.
Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, okay, it's so I don't know if it's fake news or not, but it's not far. No, I can really imagine something like that.
Shit is, but definitely unbelievable.
Yeah, unfortunately so. And the point is that this entire business model is going to die. It's dying already.
Yeah,
but it's going to die because, and a funny thing is, it's not going to die because of privacy enthusiasts.
No. Why?
It's going to die because there is like so much kind of, I would say, so this information and the ubiquity of advertising makes it like less and less effective in a way.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't think it's going to die because people will say, enough, we want privacy, we'll install ad blockers and all that. It's going to die naturally, but also once there was no alternative, but today we have an alternative. We have tokenomics that have interesting Web3 directions to explore. But once this model dies, I mean, it will do two things. First of all, you will have to pay. You will have to actually pay for everything that you are doing. Not like today that you get Gmail for free and Google for free and Facebook for free and everything for free. You will have to pay for it.
Yep.
But it's a good thing because once you pay, you will be much more in control of, what is actually happening, and will not be a product of those companies that sell your data to basically anyone who will buy it.
Sure.
And this is actually kind of reminds me of this situation that was occurring, I think, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, maybe a little bit less. You remember how the world of like movies, let's say, right, worked before piracy, before the Pirate Bay, before Napster.
Mm-hmm.
it was very different. And since I live in Israel, and Israel is, at the end of the world and left a little bit, we used to have theatrical releases of big movies happen like 1 month, sometimes 2 months after they were released.
Okay, I can relate to this, being from another end of the world, New Zealand. People, when I won't diverge too much, but when I was young, people would go to Australia on holiday and come back with like DVDs of like Home and Away, which was like some soap opera TV show, and it would be like three seasons or 3 months in advance or something like this. So I can definitely relate to this.
Yes, so that's one thing, and also there was this entire kind of if you buy a movie on DVD, let's say, and then you want to watch it on something else, you will have to buy it again. And then like all of these, weird situations. By the way, my favorite joke about that is that when you would buy a DVD, an official DVD, you will get this FBI warning at the beginning.
Yeah. I remember that.
You remember that? Like, you should not pirate that movie. Piracy is the crime, blah, blah, blah. The funny thing is that if you bought the pirated movie, you would not see this. This would be cut. So only people who actually paid for the movie saw this unskippable warning. But that's another story. So when Napster and the Pirate Bay, download world became very popular, something changed. Suddenly, these companies realized, listen, if we release the movie 3 months later in some other country, the people there will not go to theater because they have been already, pirating it. And this is what brought the kind of ubiquitous phenomenon of worldwide release. So today, that's not happening anymore.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, pirates, being, bad people and all, they have actually improved the experience for normal moviegoers, because they said, okay, listen, you can't behave like that anymore. You have to change your models. And now what's happening is that with the streaming costing like reasonable amounts of money, Netflix, I don't know, Hulu, whatever you're using, Apple TV or whatever, so you don't feel the need to pirate anymore because it's reasonable. It balanced itself to the point that you say, I'm fine with paying for that content. I get enough for this price. I'm totally okay. I don't feel the need to pirate anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, totally agree. And I've never, just for the record, I've never pirated or streamed anything, especially in the UK. But it one thing that I kind of feel is that it's almost like curated offering as well. Like they choose some films and stuff and put them in front of you, rather than with like a Pirate Bay or this kind of thing. You have to search it yourself, which I kind of like.
Yeah, this is, by the way, an interesting phenomenon for another time, but the difference between kind of on-demand content and because my parents, being from the television era, they are used to watching what's on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They switch on the device and like, okay, what's on now? And I'm like, I don't even remember, how to do that. I mean, I always think about what I want to watch, and then I find where to watch it. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. But the point I'm trying to make is that the privacy people of today, as bad as they can be, branded or try to be labeled or persecuted or whatever, I think they're doing, like us, we are doing a society a favor, because once there is an alternative, which is privacy in our case, then it will be increasingly harder for other institutions that rely on lack of privacy to continue doing business as usual. And eventually they will adjust one way or the other. I mean, yes, Blockbuster has died or whatever, right? But it's unfortunate, but I'm sorry, the times are changing. We're not renting video cassettes and paying late fees. I mean, I'm old. It's official. It's okay. Uh, but the fact that you can, people are behaving differently now, and I think ad blockers are a great example. Like raise your hand if you're using ad blocker. I do. I use an ad blocker. And when I don't use ad blocker, like sometimes, I open a new incognito tab or something happens, like I don't have an ad blocker. I'm horrified about like how web pages that I'm used to actually look like without it. And it was funny. I opened some article about privacy earlier today when I was preparing for the space, and it was in the browser that doesn't have an ad blocker, and like privacy, and then like everything around it is full of ads.
Yeah.
It was really fun. So ad blockers, for example, they say the following. They say, okay, we the users, we don't want to see ads. We are okay with donating to the creators. We're okay with, Patreon, which is, by the way, a great solution, in my opinion. You like somebody's content, you think, this person is doing, yeah.
I've never looked into it, but I have seen, I think, I can't say his name, but one of the Patreon or the users that I saw was that, and Andreas Antonopoulos.
You did?
Okay, yeah, cool. And it's a great way. It's like it's kind of similar to GoFundMe, but for like a person in general rather than like a task or kind of event thing.
Yeah, it really depends on the situation, but if you are constantly watching somebody's YouTube channel, right? And then what you do is you donate. I mean, like even $1, it's worth many hours of watching ads.
Yeah.
For this person to get the same revenue.
Absolutely.
So once we see that this model can actually work, and we see that it's viable and it's easier, and Web3 technologies obviously make it easier because paying in Ethereum or any other crypto is much faster and simpler than paying in US dollars. Then we see that this new kind of you pay for everything but you like it model, and then you're in control of, like, you don't need to give anyone any information about yourself anymore. You're not a product anymore. You're a paying customer.
Yeah.
I think it's a good and interesting kind of way forward conceptually, and I think it's also essential, and it will improve the privacy overall for everyone.
Sure.
Yeah. So I called, when I typed this kind of idea for the space, I called it the unexpected virtue of piracy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's So that's people kind of like privacy enthusiasts. These extremists that want their privacy. Yes, what they're actually doing, they're doing society a favor by showing it that there is an alternative in which, you get to pay a little bit instead of just selling all of your data for you don't know what. Yeah. So one of the topics that was discussed in the Build community a lot recently is the topic of kind of how blockchain correlates to GDPR.
Yeah. I've seen this a lot. Magic Potato has been mentioning it a lot. Yeah.
So one of the documents that was shared in the community in this regard, it's called the Blockchain and the General Data Protection Regulation, which is what GDPR stands for. And it's a study from the European Parliamentary Research Service. In Europe, you have so many institutions that do all of these papers. It's unbelievable. So first of all, unfortunately, it's from 2019, so it's a little bit dated, and in our day and age, it's like ancient history. But it's a very good document because first of all, it's 120 pages long. I will share the link, in Twitter. Obviously, it has a lot of, a lot of text of all kinds, but I would like to just kind of focus on a couple of things here because I think it's very interesting for two reasons. Like GDPR, as you know, is this effort to protect user data across many different countries, organizations, and institutions.
Okay.
So there is some amount, in my opinion, of kind of virtue signaling in this because even though, like, even if you are GDPR compliant, it doesn't really protect much. But at least there is this attempt. Now, there are two interesting things there that I want to focus on. The first one is the right to be forgotten, which I will mention in a second. And the second one is actually like, is blockchain or can blockchain be GDPR compliant?
Okay.
Okay. So the right to be forgotten is a very interesting concept because long time ago, there was this story. Turns out that in some cities or towns in America, if you're arrested, your kind of arrest record or whatever is put, it can be kind of published in sheriff's office. Like you go into the sheriff's office and, you see your mugshots and, some description. Okay. So this is a very local information. In order to see this specific page, you need to walk into the sheriff's office in that town, in that state, wherever it is. However, what some company thought about doing, they said, okay, but it's a public information, right? So we can take a photo of this report and we can put it online.
Okay, yeah.
And this kind of changes things significantly, right? Because there is a huge difference between information that is only available in some very local specific place and searchable interplanetary database, which is the internet that anyone in any part of the world instantly can, Alex Romanov, what was he arrested for, recently? So of course, there is no profit model here, you would think. Like what do they have to gain from that? But what they actually try to do is they try to blackmail people. They would say, do you want us to publish the information? If not, please pay us money.
Okay, yeah.
So
Natural progression.
Something like that. It didn't work out too well for them, but it doesn't matter. But the concept is exactly the same. So the right to be forgotten is basically the idea that if you were stupid, teenager, and you did something idiotic, you broke into some place, you set fire to something, and you were, kind of charged, and you were kind of prosecuted for that, you did community service or whatever, that was the fine. Like there was some misdemeanor or some, something that you did. It shouldn't follow you, all your life to the point where you are now kind of an established CEO of a large Fortune 500 something, and then suddenly somebody says, did you see what this person did when he was 13? He got naked and jumped off a roof, right? So that's the point. Like there is, and you can say, listen, I would like to officially request for this piece of information about me to be forgotten. Now, it's a bit of a lie because it's not really forgotten. It's kind of unfindable.
Yeah.
So you want something to be unfindable because you cannot physically in any way enforce that this video or document are not stored in some backup on some, server within some cloud service or whatever. You cannot really check that in any way. But what you want to be able to check that when you Google, Alex Romanov jumping off a roof naked, you will not find anything.
Yeah.
Please don't Google it right now.
Just 1 second. I'm just sharing the YouTube link into the community.
Okay. I will not be surprised if we will actually find something if you do that. There are way too many namesakes of mine out there. So, yeah. So this is the idea. Now, the blockchain is kind of exactly the opposite because on the blockchain, anything you put on the blockchain is stored forever. Bitcoin, for example. So is it possible for blockchain to be GDPR compliant in this specific regard? It seems like it's not, but wait a second. I will get to why I think it is. The second part is even more interesting because what they say is, okay, how does it work with GDPR? You have this kind of data custodian, right? You have someone holding your data or data about you. And this organization is responsible for keeping your data private. And it distinguishes very clearly between private data and public data. So for example, if you create an account with LinkedIn and you add your phone number and you say, I want my phone number to be private, there is an expectation that this information, even though it's stored on LinkedIn service, will not be made public through LinkedIn services. So it will not be able to say, what's your phone number, like what's this person's phone number, and get it.
Okay, yeah.
Because there is an implicit agreement or explicit agreement between the parties that this information is private, and GDPR is talking about exactly that. However, if you say, I want my phone number to be public, that's fine. It's your will, and you get what you want. So the question that is asked in this paper, which is very interesting, is that when you are using Bitcoin, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say this information about me is private and we expect privacy from Bitcoin? Or are you trying to say, listen, it's fine. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing a transaction on Bitcoin. I'm fully aware that it's not private.
True. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a crazy interesting point because of two reasons. First of all, we are surprised, and there was this interesting video from Brightcon about this kind of podcast that a lot of people who are using Bitcoin don't really know that they're not.
Yeah, they assume that it's some anonymous internet currency.
Yeah, that's the point. And also, they don't know necessarily exactly how not private they are, because they say, okay, so I have this address, nobody knows it's mine, and it's just a random string of letters and numbers. How would you know? And I create a new address, and now how do you know that it's fine? You don't know. But the truth is obviously, it's linkable. It's all kind of basically very traceable. Now, this is the first point. So people don't really know. The second point, if they do know, is it really their meaning? And now it's a golden time for Bitcoin maximalists out there, right? Bitcoin maximalists now are very vocal. They're everywhere. Bitcoin is doing well. Everything is going good. So are all of these people saying every transaction that I make on Bitcoin is public, and I stand by my decision? That's what I want it to be. I want it to be public. I'm not sure that's the case. Now, if you think about it, let's talk about privacy solutions, privacy coins. You there, Gus? Am I here? Can anyone still hear me? Yeah. So come to think of it, the privacy coins like Monero, like Beam, where all transactions are confidential by default, they are much more aligned with principles of GDPR than Bitcoin or Ethereum or all the others. Why? Because of two reasons. First of all, let's talk about the right to be forgotten. So if nobody can find information about you, that's basically it, right? Like, it doesn't really, nobody can actually care whether it's stored somewhere or not, even if it's stored about on the blockchain for eternity. The fact that you cannot find it is good enough. The second point is that when you are using private blockchain, you explicitly say, I want this information to be private. This is my private information. This is not public information. And only the same user can decide to make this information public at any point. Like, until that time, it's private and it cannot be changed by the system. The system doesn't have this capacity to, de-anonymize, to disclose information. That's kind of the point that I was trying to make.
Okay, so that makes sense. Like, Bitcoin is obviously like not private, or like a pseudo anonymous, and if users are kind of like aware and use it as such, then they're kind of compliant, or the system is compliant. Whereas if it was anonymous and there was something like, I don't know, WhatsApp. I want to say WhatsApp. I don't know if it's true or whatever, but like, if they can decrypt stuff, if they could, I don't know if they can, then that wouldn't be compliant. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I don't want to tell European regulatory, services what to do, but I think that if they, apply GDPR principles to blockchains, they should state that privacy coins are actually doing the right thing here.
Yeah, for sure.
Give us some, some recognition, people. It's that's what we're trying to comply with GDPR. We're great. So yeah, obviously they want, but it's okay. Now, the last kind of thing that I want to mention, and it's actually coming from this tweet today from Liquidity. By the way, for those who are not following Liquidity, they did a presentation on at ECC, and I like Liquidity. It's a great protocol. The Nifrit is obviously based on it. And they did some really nice, interesting improvements. So they have published this tweet about the trilemma that you have this kind of decentralization, and performance in terms of kind of, scalability. So kind of showed us that over-collateralized stablecoins would work really well, and that's absolutely true. And yeah, however, I thought about the fact that, you can add kind of additional dimension, which is privacy. And then I thought about something that in my opinion, like I really kind of found it interesting. Privacy costs nothing to add. It's not a part of any, system of, what do you call it? Like you don't have to give up something else to add privacy.
Yeah, sure.
And think about it for a second. You're using Bitcoin, great. But if you would have used Monero, it's exactly the same mechanism, just as privacy. Like what's the cost? Like what are you paying here? Yes, maybe blockchain side, but that's like really not an issue. That's not something that people think about when they, decide whether or not to use Monero. You are using Ethereum, but if you use Beam, you would get exactly the same, like in terms of, functionality and, things that can be done on the platform, but will also with added privacy. And even if you went to Ethereum and you said, listen, we want privacy here, it would have been added and it would not cost you anything. You're not yes, it might, annoy your government, it might annoy your tax collectors, whatever. But for you as a user, you don't give up anything.
Yeah.
You get, I think it's an interesting kind of observation, because sometimes there is this trade-off, right? There's a trade-off. Oh, if I get, something faster, that it will be more expensive, whatever. But here in this case, there is no trade-off.
Yeah. So like, going back to Bitcoin versus Monero, like obviously they'd still have a trilemma, but it would be the same trilemma between the two, like the blockchain trilemma, secure, decentralized, scalable, but not like a privacy isn't one of the factors in this.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Now, I tweeted earlier in the week, I tweeted like, were there any privacy related presentations at ECC? And obviously it was a kind of rhetorical question, because, there were none. There were a couple about ZK EVMs, but that's more about something else. Like it's not about privacy. And then I found an article from, I think it was 2016, by Vitalik Buterin, talking about various privacy solutions and like how can it be implemented, and the fact that Ethereum really needs privacy and all that. And here we are, 7 years later.
Yep.
Nothing of the sort. Nobody mentions it. Vitalik is excited about account abstraction, which is great, but account abstraction is kind of, very nice. It doesn't improve your privacy one count. And it's really kind of strange. Like nobody demands that, even though it costs you nothing in terms of you will lose nothing if they would just add privacy. Nobody, saying, oh, let's do that. Not even in the theoretical, like not even as a presentation at ECC.
Yeah, true.
So so there's that. And those are my thoughts for this evening.
Yeah, we've covered a lot and very interesting. I have something I've been holding back, and it's a question actually, and it's related to, I think it might be related to GDPR, and actually related to the entire space. And I just sent you a message. Now, I don't know if you know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyway. Like when you go on a new website that you've never been on before, do you get a message saying like, can we store your cookies or this kind of stuff? Do you get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I wasn't sure if this was like wrong.
Part of the blocking.
I thought this might have been a part of the GDPR, that to be compliant with GDPR, you need to have this like, do you accept the cookies?
Yeah. I'll tell you how it works. One of the concepts within GDPR is minimizing information that is stored. So in order to be GDPR compliant, you need to be able to show that the information that you're collecting about the user is the minimal information that you need to provide the service that you advertise. So for example, if you want to show me a movie, you don't necessarily need to know when I was born, unless there is a rating thing, or you don't necessarily need to know, in which town I live. So don't collect this information.
Yeah.
And this is why there are all of these pop-ups. They say like your cookies, your whatever. Now, the problem is that, first of all, in most cases, there are two options. And one of them is like collect all or like, cancel, and then you don't exactly know what cancel does. The second one, when you have the picture you sent me, there are actually several options like functional, analytics, and marketing. And like, do you really?
Yeah. And the thing, like the thing that always, not always, but often I try to find a good one, but this one is kind of okay. But I always find it so confusing. Like, I don't know if the slider is like on or off. I don't know if accept all means accepting the ones that I've put the slider on or what. Like, it's very, yeah.
This is actually has to do with the question of default.
Yes.
Opt-in, opt-out. And by the way, I think Apple has recently started to change that to kind of opt-in model, which is better, which means that in order to get access to some services, you need to explicitly go and turn them on because they're off by default. This is actually great. And we can talk about good and bad, about Apple for a long time, but this is the right thing to do. Because when you are a user that starts using some service application or whatever, the defaults, they imply most of the behavior. And I know this very well because I have had in my past first-hand experience with kind of advertising, business, ad tech, and 99.9% of the users do not change the defaults.
Yeah, makes sense.
So this is actually a great move. And once again, unfortunately, and this is kind of the point, the reason I don't talk about the things because these things, in order to have a require external regulation, and I don't want to say this. What we need is more, government or whatever intervention to make these organizations change the defaults. No, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is that we need to change the business model across the industry so that this kind of behavior is not profitable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like Web3 presents a very promising opportunity to do so.
Yes, exactly. And this is why I'm a strong believer in this direction. And I think that going this way is much more beneficial for us and society, like in the long term, instead of just saying, don't allow them to do that, go prohibit them from doing this. Like they will find another way. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Cool. That was amazing. It was very interesting. And I really liked talking about these subjects.
I'm just seeing it now. We do have a couple of questions. Two, I think. Should we go through them quickly?
I know. Let's do that. Yeah, sure. So first question is was about the countdown transition process, right?
I'm looking at totally different questions. I'm saying,
you go ahead with
can Beam support Lelantis Spark, and what would be the pros and cons?
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, sorry. I just read the second one yet.
Yeah, so Lelantis Spark is the next generation of the Lelantis protocol. I'm not familiar with all the details yet, but what it means is that it increases the anonymity set of the Lelantis pool. Lelantis uses a shielded pool to kind of shield and protect your UTXOs. So it increases the anonymity set by a lot while keeping the proofs relatively small, but because this is the trade-off, right? In the current Lelantis implementation, you can increase the pool size and the anonymity set as a result. You will get larger proofs that will get, require more time to be verified or constructed. So this is the improvement. So the answer is yes, it's definitely possible to edit. Whether we're going to do it in the next hard fork, the 8.0 hard fork, remains to be seen for two reasons. First of all, I'm not sure exactly how much effort it requires. We need to investigate, and we didn't yet. The second is that I personally feel that it's definitely an improvement. I'm not sure it's something that is urgently needed. Like the anonymity set size of the Lantos pools right now is the most acute problem for Beam. So if there will be a trade-off, we will talk about it, right? I'm not saying I will make some decision or anyone will make a decision. We will talk about it once we know more details. But obviously, if it's like, if it's a reasonable amount of effort, we will do it. But if it's a lot of work, we will need to think about it, because we have quite a lot to build, and we will need to decide whether this specific, aspect is the most important one to focus on right now.
Cool. And the second question was the one you mentioned. What is the reason for the transition to a DAO, and will that transition impact development efforts?
Yes. So this question is obviously a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
We will try to see. First of all, we will definitely address it in more in more detail next space. So we will mark it for kind of extended topic in the next space. And we will also try to write something about it in form of an article or a series of tweets during the week. Because yes, it's an important question. It's something that is very kind of central in general to what we're doing. And yeah, I think it should be addressed in a more kind of expanded and detailed way than just kind of answering yes or no.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it like. I'm staring at it now, and I see the question prior that has like pros and cons, and obviously it will impact the development efforts, and I think there's a number of pros and cons, like positives and negatives that would come with it in terms of like the impact on development efforts for Beam and the ecosystem in general, and definitely worth like a wider discussion and some more like thought and community input as well, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, good.
There is, by the way, another question, which I think we will also talk a little bit about next week. I looked at the community chat. It's about what services we will provide to companies, like or if adopted by corporate companies.
Yeah. I see that too. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. The short answer is a lot, but we're probably not going to ever find out.
Yeah.
For several reasons, but we'll discuss it next time. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And it's been great. We'll see you next week.
Look,
And stay safe and
absolutely. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.